I don't think it was good for the game. I think it was bad for the game. But I do wake up some mornings and just think, I miss it. I miss it.
We're not going to blow our load right now. We want you to be pumped.
I think that we've got some social narratives coming up for the Exilecon qualifiers that'll be interesting. To borrow from Dota culture, in principle, they could sell a supporter pack where 50% of the proceeds goes to the Exilecon finals pool.
It has been a long road to patch 0.5 for Path of Exile 2, but we are almost across the finish line, and I am here with the corruptor of casuals like myself, the speedrunning master, a caster in one of the official GGG races, and maybe even competing to go to Exilecon later this year. CrimsonCasts, how are you doing, my man?
I'm doing well. Corruptor of Casuals is a new title, but I've been putting in work to get people more interested in speedrunning and like optimizing gameplay and stuff. So yeah, I appreciate the title.
If people don't know, like the past month and a half, Crimson has really been putting in the work to expose campaign speed running or just racing against others to the greater creator community, and not just those that are hyper optimizing their campaign runs. And he's even drawn me into the fray. He hosted a race between my brother and I just last night, which was ridiculously intense, and we'll get all into the race talk in a little bit, but I know people are champing, I got that right, at the bit for everyone's opinions on patch 0.5. So I want to start off with asking you, everything that we've seen in the patch so far, what are you most pumped about? Is it something that's under the radar or something that is at top of everyone's minds?
So everyone's taking W's but me. I want to be clear. It's a big W patch full of endgame content for endgame players, and I'm happy for y'all, but 0.5 doesn't have the stuff that I want. And that's not because of swords. It's because like the information that would make me excited about a patch is a bunch of like numerical balance information. So maybe we see them take really big swings at adjusting the tree and rescaling stuff. But until we get the patch notes right now, it's, for me as someone who cares primarily about racing as being the way that I engage the game, it's just another patch, and I'm happy for everybody else.
So are you going to be doing a Giga stream tomorrow analyzing all the patch notes that, or sorry, 2 days from now when all the patch notes drop?
Yeah. Yep. Like my 0.4 patch notes reveal stream took 17 hours.
Oh,
so we're probably going to be doing a real long stream where we're sitting in Path of Building, like really min-maxing, leveling strats and stuff for a long time. That's my type of jam.
See, so you and I are totally on the opposite ends of the spectrum then. I'd be curious to hear from you, and I know this is totally uncontroversial. What balance swings, like you said, maybe they'll take some heavy swings. What would you be most amped to see in the patch notes when they do drop in 2 days?
Do I have to limit my request to the scope of reality, or am I allowed to
let's just go all out. Let's yap. Let's imagine that the past 3 weeks, GGG has been like, content is good, done. Let's just do balance these 3 weeks. Let's surprise them. We said balance wasn't the focus of this, but let's go hard on balance for these next couple weeks.
So like, well, I made a video about like changes I want on the tree, and so there's a lot there if people are really curious about for the minutia of what I want. But a lot of it is like the way that defenses are implemented in Path of Exile 2. I have like two main frustrations with like your basic defenses: evasion, ES, armor, and one is like there's this generic type of node that exists that goes like plus X to your Y for every X on your equipped helmet, right? So you think of nodes like Subterfuge Mask and Spectral Ward, and there are ones in the other hybrid areas of the tree. And those are, one, very uninteresting to me as ways to scale defenses, and two, pigeonhole players into using particular item-based types. And I just don't think that that's an interesting way to scale defenses in the game. So I would like to see a pretty serious nerf to Subterfuge Mask and Spectral Ward and Leatherbound Gauntlets and the other ones that work in similar ways. And then even more boldly, a lot of the way that like the math is implemented to convert either your armor or your evasion rating into your physical damage reduction or your chance to evade a hit, I think that the topology of those equations is poorly thought out in Path of Exile as a franchise. Like, I don't think that armor should scale with the size of the incident hit, for example, and that means that I would, like, if it were my dream patch, they would be, like, completely reworking the armor equation itself which is not something that they're going to do.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, the armor equation from PoE1 to PoE2 was changed as well, and it actually made armor worse in PoE2. Am I remembering this crypt video from a long time ago accurately?
So between the two games, they have the same shape of equation, but some of the constants in that equation got changed in the transition from PoE1 to PoE2. Whereas I'm saying like the actual structure of the equation itself, I don't want them to change the constants. I want them to use a completely different type of equation.
So I remember you were actually talking about this on stream a couple nights ago. What would this equation look, and I'm punching above my weight class here.
No.
What would this equation look like? Would you say like it would just scale linearly with investment? Would it be logarithmic? Like what would that look like for?
So my problem right now is that the thing that is generally threatening to players in Path of Exile 2 is dying in a very short time span. Like almost no one has an attrition-based death where it takes you 20 or 30 seconds to end up in a scarier and scarier situation. You tend to die, maybe not to a big slam, but to something that happens over the course of like 1 to 3 seconds. And what that means is that armor, which does a really good job at dealing with small hits and a really bad job at dealing with large hits, is mostly irrelevant at dealing with the things that are actually functionally threatening to most players.
Right.
In most gameplay circumstances. Because like mobs stop being threatening to you at all by the end of Act 4. You have enough damage to clear white packs and you're not under threat anymore. And so what I would like is to remove hit size scaling from armor. What that means as far as like how it scales into endgame and the relative strength that players should have defensively against content is different. I'm just saying I have this problem with hit size scaling where armor is bad at big hits and good at small ones, and that leads to us seeing that leads to frustrating itemization problems for armor-based characters because they don't have solutions to deal with big hits, especially because we lack life on tree scaling right now, right? So you can't just build your max hit pool very large as a strength character compared to what you can do with ES. So like if they're not going to put life on tree, then giving armor-based characters some better way to deal with like larger hits and changing the hit size scaling is something that I would like, but that's way beyond anything that'll ever actually happen in real life.
Right. It looks like they're trying to just experiment with adding new methods of defense in the game. Obviously, they're adding Runic Ward in this patch. They're also just flat out buffing like armor bases. I saw in a Dreamcore video, it might work out to like 42% or something if that math holds into the actual patch. Then they're adding other avenues of getting max life. Like there's a new ring base type that's like the Vermilion ring from Path of Exile 1. I do not know the base type in Path of Exile 2, but come on, gamers. I do know some Path of Exile 1 stuff, okay? So they are trying to introduce avenues for those pure strength characters, but your solution would be to actually just completely reinvent, at least in PoE2, how everything is calculated. That's interesting. It would be curious to hear the devs' thoughts on something that granular. I'm wondering if they would ever talk on it.
Like, I mean, so to be clear, there are a lot of like tuning levers that exist in PoE1 that don't yet exist in PoE2, like various types of damage conversion and other various things. Also, life on tree, for that matter, is much more available in PoE1 than 2. And I look forward to the arrival of those systems, but because neither of the other fundamental defense types scale with hit size at all, making a fundamentally balanced comparison between like different types of defenses is not possible right now, because in order for you to say like, would it be better to have armor or evasion in this circumstance, you have to start asking questions about, for example, the hit size, which is not true in the case of other games that have armor and evasion systems where you get damage reduction from one and chance to dodge from the other.
Yeah. I'm wondering if, when obviously the last couple classes they're introducing are strength, melee, right? So a lot of them invest into armor. I wonder if they're waiting to introduce these mechanics. And I'll go back to Path of Exile one. Like Fortify is one that a lot of people always invest into. That's really hard for casters or other variety of builds to spec into, but really easy for these melee armor-based users. Maybe they're not like changing it or revamping it right now because they feel like, okay, well, the archetypes except for warrior aren't in the game yet, so we're saving it to add when the duelist comes in with swords and the marauder with axes and everything. And that's being very charitable to grinding gear games, because when addressed about this, I feel like that is something they could say. They'd be like, hey, we got some mechanisms we're going to put into place when these classes come to the game. We're kind of saving it. We're not going to blow our load right now. We want you to be pumped for all these armor changes when they eventually do come. But they don't say that. They kind of just say, more fine tuning, all the defenses are asymmetric. I think they were talking about it with Ziggy. I think Mark was talking about defenses a little bit, and it got me a little confused just when they were talking about their philosophy on defenses and everything. And I don't know what the direction is going to be. We'll just have to see, I suppose. So,
yeah, it'll be. Long story short, like, I think that PoE2 is actually in a good spot overall. Like, I'm not saying that I dislike the current defensive system. Just that the thing that would get me excited is that I care a lot about the mathematical refinement of systems implementation. And so, like, that's my, like, preferred solution. But there are a lot of things that borrow history from PoE1 or from other ARPGs that I would also be excited to see. And since I haven't played PoE1, I'm often, when I bring up these opinions, educated by people who have played a lot of PoE1. And my touchstone for comparison is other ARPGs. And so
other ARPGs.
I care a lot, or actually things outside the ARPG genre as far as their defensive systems implementation. Like, for example, the way that armor converts to physical damage reduction in Dota is very close to what I want implemented in PoE2, for example.
Okay. Oh, we might need to talk about that for a little bit, because I was a massive Dota 2 player. Never Dota 1. Dota 2 though. We'll save that for a little later. So if we squeeze the scope a little bit, Crimson, and we look at something realistic, what do you think would be best for the game if it were changed on patch note day? Something you go into the patch notes and you're just ecstatic that it's there. Something like, trigger being revamped drastically, or added attack time being cut by 30% on maces, something like that. Is there anything that sticks out to you?
Yeah, for sure. A lot of people bring up the topic of like items being too powerful and tree being too weak.
Yeah.
I think about that same issue a little bit differently than some other people express it, which is that I think that item modifiers create too much variance between good and bad items, and that swamps the difference in good and bad trees. So, for example, if you and I were both playing like warrior, and you find a really good mace on your playthrough, and I don't, there is no amount of me taking points out of my defenses and putting them into my damage that will catch me up to you, which is related to what people say about tree is too weak, items are too strong. But the way that I think about it is like the variance of item power is too high. And so I often bring this up as saying, like, if you buffed the base damage of the item and removed some damage from the affixes, then you would end up with a much smaller range of damage between, say, the very best mace and a completely dog water one. And that would allow the player's agency and decisions to matter more. And you could still have a substantive, big, impactful difference. But like right now, a level 16 studded Great Hammer, if you hit the best roll of flat lightning on it, that lightning affix has as much damage as the base item itself, which means if you slam 18% physical damage plus some accuracy rating, and I slam lightning damage, I have twice as much damage as you, and there's just no amount of entree investment that'll catch you up to me. And so that's... Like, I think you can still have, for example, a weapon be 60% stronger than another weapon, or even with multiple affixes, twice as strong as another weapon. But I think that there's often a fatalist response to this topic when I bring it up, where people go like, then all weapons would be the same and there's nothing exciting happening anymore. To which my response is like, your damage going up by 60% isn't something that feels substantive to you?
Right.
Okay. Next time your boss offers you a 60% raise, since that makes no difference to you, just mail it to me instead. Okay.
There you go.
Just,
No.
people behave as though it's not like tripling your damage. You're not going to notice it. I think that that's not a good way to approach the game. So long story short, I think like damage variance, especially during leveling and like early mapping, like up until you get into T15s and you have a chance to craft really good stuff, the variance between good and bad is like really large right now. And I think that there's a decent chance that GGG does something to address that variance. It could be changing modifiers. It could be giving us more of the deterministic stuff in campaign, like better access to essences and runes and things that allow us to push that damage floor up with, you know, some of the weaker essences would still push the damage floor up quite a bit for players. And so I think that there's a chance we see a push in that direction.
Yeah, we already know some affixes such as plus skill gems. They're gonna have at least the top end is gonna be nerfed a little bit. We don't know how that's gonna play out, but lowering or upping the base damage and lowering the damage increases from the affixes is an interesting solution that I actually haven't really heard a lot of people present solutions like this or any real solutions. They are like me, I just say, hey, I think this is a problem. It's too swingy. You have no idea how so much more powerful than another player. And some people don't even realize the gap that there is. I mean, according to GGG themselves, this is a great thing to talk about too. I want to hear your take on it.
Mm-hmm.
They said in the Q&A that people think boss fights take too long. Okay. No, people think that boss fights take a too short amount of time. Okay. And bosses are too easy, right? And they said, your average streamer might be doing, I think it was 8 seconds. Okay. Well, the average player, I think they said average player might take 2 minutes on that boss fight. And that difference is okay in their eyes. And that they don't think some top end builds need to be nerfed. But that variance is like okay in their eyes. Wouldn't squishing, as you proposed, basically the weapon strength and allowing more determinism to add to character power help address that? Because I think that's like a 14 or 15x difference between the two amount of times, which is crazy in my eyes.
So it depends on like when you say like would it help? It depends whether or not you think that there's a problem with like top end speedrunnery blastery people who have lots of game knowledge being 15 times faster than first time players or even than average players, right? Because the example that Mark brought up in that interview was that the average duration of the Forsaken Sun fight in mid-Act 2 is 119 seconds. And so that's not like comparing a competitive speedrunner person or some top, blaster streamer guy to a complete first-time player. It's comparing them to the average player. And so my thought is like, I would rather bosses take me personally twice as long. And I'm definitely in that 8-second camp. I would rather it be like if the fight takes me 30 seconds instead of 8 seconds, I'm still 4 times faster than the average player, but the fight still has some chance for the boss to be threatening to me or to require me to know the mechanics. And I would much prefer that balance.
Yeah.
There are other people who look at a 15x balance and they think like they don't see a problem with that. So like,
it's so tough to balance, like, because people are at each other's throats almost about this whole fact. Like, I'm on your side. The whole 30 seconds. Great. You see some boss moves. You have to engage with the boss. You're still doing it way faster than the average and way, 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 way faster than the first time noob, right? I think that would be great. Honestly, I think it would be great for the game, great for balance, great for content, everything. But so many people want to be able to blast the boss down.
To give you an example, because people are going to be, just to clarify essentially about this, if you push up the floor of damage by a lot, the average player might go from, say, 2 minutes to 1.5 minutes because they have a much better weapon. And then I'm saying I want both the floor to be pushed up so the average player or the mediocre player or the new player doesn't struggle as much as they currently do. And also the ceiling pushed down. Maybe that's a reduction in top-end player power. Maybe that's a buff to the HP of campaign bosses.
Right.
But long story short, I want the campaign harder for me. And I also want there to be less variance, which has
Right.
benefits for the average player and benefits for me.
Right.
So
Oh, I totally understand that, and I do agree with you. It sounded like GGG, at least now, we're kind of, okay with the current balance, and that's why I've really
yeah.
appreciated just doing this whole speed running racing thing, because it has
Mhm.
brought back my love for the game. I swear, guys, if you
Yep.
haven't tried it, push yourself to not skip everything, but not be as powerful in the campaign, and you actually have to, like, I've been paying attention to all the boss mechanics. All the monsters are super scary. I need to know what they do. The flamethrower guys in Agam Manor, oh my gosh, I gotta
Yep.
watch out for
Yep.
those dudes. You gotta know
Yep.
all the boss mechanics. You gotta know what items to pick up and win. Like, it's so much fun. Speed running the campaign in 0.4 makes me feel like I'm playing 0.1 just at a much faster pace, and I love that, because everything really does seem to be a challenge. Now, I know if I was, better, I could make it look like Engormus. Like, I watched his run, and he's basically tanking, 75% of the moves. He knows exactly how much damage they're always going to deal and how many flash charges he has, right? But me playing it as not so skilled, man, it's so much
No,
fun.
but that's one of the things that's interesting, right? Is like if you talk to Angormus or if you watch him coaching someone on Warrior for the first time, a lot of his advice to people, or a lot of my advice when I'm coaching people on speedrun builds I'm familiar with, is like you just have to play way more defensively than you think you do.
Yeah.
And so from the outside, there's this persistent perspective among people who are not familiar with the speedrun that people are like, oh my God, you're tanking everything. And it's more like I know
What I can.
exactly where I will be threatened, and
Yeah.
that requires much more engagement. Whereas like when I'm playing on endgame characters, I am not like consciously looking to the edge of my monitor to see like what is coming off of the edge of the screen in order to figure out if I need to dodge because they're a projectile mob and that means that they can light stun me out of my animation and then I need to position this. Like it just feels less engaging the better geared my character is.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, for them, the journey is about that they enjoy getting to the point that their build does invalidate the content and it does become, the 0 to hero progression stuff. But, for me, that's when the game gets boring. So
that was a great call. Yeah, me too. Great call out there too about like me thinking that, whoa, he's taking over. You're right. As I'm thinking to that, Draven as an example, because in the Draven fight, Engormus, when I was watching, Engormus tanked the small blast from Assinia. And then he just at the last second, right moved outside the massive blast. That's like, he knew exactly, I can tank that, need to play super defensively with that. And if I make the mistake, I'm totally done. Another one was, I think you pointed out in the rundown, okay, we're in, I think it was one of the mausoleums, and you're like, or no, it was the Red Veil. And you're like, okay, got to go for the ranged monsters, have to go for the poisoners. You have to pay attention. Don't look at the melee mobs. Take out the ranged mobs first, and the melee mobs will follow. You actually had to pay attention to the enemy designs. I love that. So I have only been speedrunning Act 1. I'm so pumped to try to break into Act 2. I'm probably going to do it just on League launch. And I'm gonna be met with just a freaking wall, dude. I just feel like I'm gonna get crushed in Act 2, and it's gonna be so much fun. It's gonna feel kind of like like I said, the 01 experience, because in 03 and 04, I just blasted through. It was very easy, not a lot of pushback. But if you play like this, if you choose, like, almost like you're choosing your own fun, playing your own way, I mean, you can have a blast. So
yeah, and one of the things that I want to say, by the way, because I do a lot of promoting of speedrunning, and there's a persistent question of like people asking like, why would you play the game if you're going to run past everything? Or like, do I need to speedrun? Like, why are people so obsessed with speedrunning? If you enjoy playing more methodically, like, good. Like, play however you enjoy.
Yeah.
Like, I personally don't buy into... A lot of people represent the economic advantage of getting to maps early as being like the be-all end-all of your complete League experience. And I think that effect is real, but that it's overrepresented. Like, I think if you get to maps in 10 hours instead of 6 hours, or 12 hours instead of 6 hours, you're still going to be able to fully gear your character. You're still going to be able to craft and trade enough to afford your chase uniques. Like,
right.
I think that economic effect is like overrepresented, and that's not why I'm interested in speedrunning. So if you're listening and you're like not interested in speedrunning, like good. So long as you're enjoying the game, I don't care.
Yeah, and see,
Good.
I wasn't even thinking, Crimson, I wasn't even thinking about that. You know, like a lot of people do speedrun to get to the icon, like to get to the
Yep.
best items faster, to corner a market. That literally didn't even enter my mind. I've just been thinking, wow, that's so much fun. I just want to do that. It's like the game is challenging, right? So I wonder how many people do think like that. Like, guys, if you've been like me, I released a bunch of videos in the lead up to 05 talking about meaningful combat, challenge in game, This is literally what I was looking for. Like, it's not, you're not going slow, but man, is all the combat meaningful? Are all the monsters meaningful? You have to pay attention. It's so engaging. So I know speedrunning, I think it comes with a little bit of almost an elitist connotation. Guys, I am the farthest from an elitist there is. I am freaking loving it. Crimson is like a big, lovable teddy bear. He's been so welcoming to me. And I mean, my brother who, you know, hasn't done any content at all and is like a complete noob on the scene. He's so nice, so nice. And it's been so much fun. So I highly recommend giving it a go. If you think it'll suck, just do it. Try an Act 1 speedrun. Just try to, you know, try to push yourself. That's what Crimson did to me, and I had a blast, and now I'm addicted, dude. Doing Act 1 speedruns at 11 p.m. at night.
You're gonna have to win one of the races soon, so we can get you a
dude.
Demi.
I know. Yeah. I have to do Act 2 act. I have to do the other acts. I'm gonna sequentially progress, so I'm gonna practice in the 05 launch, and we'll see how that goes. I'm scared. I'm really scared I'm going to get my butt kicked and sent back to the beach pretty much. We'll have to see though. Okay, so since we've been talking about speedrunning for just a little bit, obviously one of the biggest early game changes happening with 0.5, now I'm saying it like you, Crimson, is the campaign. The campaign...
Well, hold on. What's this meme of like, I say 0.5 some way that gets people in my YouTube comments upset? What's the problem?
Don't you remember? I'm engaging baiting, just like you said 6, 7 earlier. I'm saying 0.5, so everybody's like,
but I don't know why people are upset with 0.5. What's wrong with 0.5?
I don't. That's how GGG says it. Like Mark and Jonathan say 0.50, 0.5.
Now, when I'm doing the YouTube narrator voice, I do say 0.5, or like I draw it out sometimes.
That might be it.
You know,
that might be it. It's like there's that almost connotation with maybe girls sometimes go like 0.5, you know, kind of, does it sound like that? I think it kind of sounds like that. Maybe that's what it is. And people are like, oh man, I don't know if I like that.
I'm too Californian for them.
Californian. Yes. It's like, there you go. That's what it was. Okay. Yeah. So in 05, lots of campaign changes in the form of these little clues that are happening. Would love to know if you think, how much you think these will affect the average player's campaign run, and if it's going to address the slog that Jonathan is reading of in the YouTube comments, in the Steam community comments, or if this won't have as grand an effect as, you know, I and many others think it will.
Well, so there are a couple of things that are changing, and they're going to have separate effects. One is a lot of zone shapes and sizes are being reworked, especially for really disliked zones, for your Freythorns, your Venom Crypts, your Izak Bogs, your Motlin Waterways. Those are being, from what we know so far, those are being condensed, or their shape is changing, or their size is changing, and I think that that has a pretty significant effect for people in their first playthrough back in 0.5. In ARPGs that have like a more mature ladder reset knowledge base among the player base. So if you look at like Diablo 2 Resurrected or Path of Exile 1, where the community has had many years for wayfinding knowledge to disseminate much further, I think that we're probably not likely to see a really significant influence from the wayfinding for several more patches.
Okay.
Because I think it's going to take time for the average player to know to look for the direction that this such and such river flows, or to recognize, like, I'll give you an example right now. There's a wayfinding technique in the campaign right now, an environmental clue that like I've never heard anyone know, and I only know it because I was told directly by a level designer that it's true. In Act 4, when you go to Isle of Kin and you go into the volcanic warrens, the sort of indoor magma area, the direction that the lava is flowing and the background environmental art points toward the boss of the area.
Oh, To Crew Talk. Really?
Yeah.
They-
Yeah. So like that's already in the game.
That's so subtle.
So like as a consequence, I think it's going to take a really long time before, like, first off, there are several in the game that the wider gameplay community may not have as much visibility on right now. Some of them are starting to get out there. For example, like Trader's Passage, we talk about the yellow post-it notes on the wall pointing toward Balbala. Or there are already zones in the game where like they point out in the reveal that you can see mushrooms on the ground as you get closer to the entrance to the Grim Tangle.
Mm-hmm.
It's already the case in the game that there are mushrooms on the ground a couple of tiles away before you can see the Grim Tangle entrance.
Right. See,
Like there are already some environmental clues, and I just think if PoE1 players or like me coming from Diablo 2, if you compare that to people knowing tile set generations for all these things in PoE1, I just think it's going to be several patches until we see that knowledge get collected and then eventually put into nice written guides on all the guide sites and put into YouTube videos, and then people have time to tell their friends, and then it becomes more common knowledge. I think that that's going to take like multiple patch cycles.
Yeah, now that we're talking about it here and it's just not bubbling around in my head, I think it's just going to affect the people who are playing the campaign a lot and are already really invested in the game, and they're looking out for these things. They are looking for ways to do the campaign faster. They're not necessarily the average player. For the average player, they're going to see it in a YouTube short, or like you said, they're going to look up ways to get through PoE2 campaign faster in 0.6 or 1.0, and they're going to see this list of things. They're going to be like, whoa, you're kidding me? You follow the lava and you go to Krutog? Or there are mushrooms on the ground leading to they're not going to see it in game. But for those people who are like, man, the campaign taking so much time, man, oh wait, GGG's adding all this stuff to the game. Okay, I'm going to be on the lookout, because they're already invested. They watched the reveal, they watched probably GGG's video about the campaign clues. They're going to be on the lookout, but that's not the average player. That's probably like, the top 10, 20% of people, So
like I think that a lot of people who are super invested don't recognize where they are in the investment hierarchy, if that makes sense. Like a lot of people will be like, well, they announced it in the reveal and therefore people are going to know about it.
Yeah.
I think that the player base, if you take any one individual thing that was announced in the reveal, it's not going to be known widely by the player base unless it's like the main league mechanic or the main highlight reel thing of the league. So I think that a lot of these details where you and I refer to, like, there's this one 12-second snippet where Mark says that the average time for the Forsaken Sun is 119 seconds. Nobody knows that, dog. Yes, Mark said it.
Right.
Yes, it was on a major broadcast. I totally get it. The average player is not going to know, like, not going to remember that 6 weeks from now. So I do hope that there's a bigger push toward the player base, like more of these environmental clues being disseminated further. And I do think that there is going to be like really significant increased visibility for those things because of these efforts. I still think it'll take months.
Yeah.
I still think it'll take months until the average player, until your middle of the road person who's coming back for their 4th or 5th or 6th league actually knows most of the environmental tells and actively looks for them. I think that that's going to be quite a long time.
That's sensible. I think you're right that the more impactful change right away will be those layout changes that are coming, especially to the more hated zones. And man, that's going to be so interesting to see walking in after all these patches running, seeing how substantial they are, because I'm sure they're not going to fully detail stuff in the patch notes. It's just going to be on launch day. We're going to see the new layouts for the first time. It's going to be exciting, man. This patch, it's girthy. It's girthy. It's so exciting, dude. I'm ready.
I think some of the zone shape changes, I'll be curious to see the public reaction, because as someone who spent a lot of time like literally memorizing the zone shapes for different places, I wonder if there are going to be changes that I think are really significant, that, because I have all this like specialized time invested in memorizing it, that other people may not even notice. And I also wonder if the reverse is going to be true, that people are going to be like astounded by some change that I think is really subtle. So that's one of the things I'm looking forward to about the 0.5 cycle, is like calling up people who maybe aren't as invested in speedrun optimization as I am, and getting like the diversity of opinions, because I expect there's going to be some perspective difference there that I will probably find really interesting.
Yeah, there's so many changes happening throughout the campaign and the end game too. I was talking with Definitive the other day, and he thought it would be kind of a cool experiment. I don't know, we'll try to rally the other creators that we have on our super, super secret Discord to post how long it takes, like your slash played, finishing the campaign, the new campaign, and then finishing all the end game quests, and then maxing out your Atlas. Seeing how long it takes, because GGG has kind of said, oh, this is going to be a lengthy process that you're going to go through. And I'd be very curious to see if, maybe, is it going to take you 40 hours? Is it going to take me 120 hours? Or is this going to be,
who knows? Yeah.
Like, I'm very curious to see what this is going to look like. Because I'm almost viewing the new endgame quest lines as a secondary campaign that is a sandbox at the start. Because you get there, and you are approached with 9 different quests that you can go through and complete, and you're not getting skill points for yourself. You're getting skill points for your Atlas, and you're gonna want to go through and complete all that stuff at some point. So it's basically like a giant act, if you will, but you have complete control over what you're doing. Yeah, I probably shouldn't use that comparison because people will not be happy with that analogy. That's how I kind of view it. Endgame.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see the response of like imagine if the average campaign time goes down really significantly. Like, let's say that the average time to maps right now is 20 hours, and in the next patch it's like 14.
Yeah.
Right.
They should. I wonder. They've never shared that data, right? Average campaign.
No, nor would they.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yeah.
Nor would they.
Wow.
But imagine that that's what the difference is, 20 to 14. And imagine that I think that there would still be people who right now are actually really far above average, and they're getting to maps in 6 or 8 hours. And they get to maps in 4 or 5 hours instead, and they're still frustrated because they want to have it be 2 hours. Right. So I'll be curious to see, like, not just what the size of the improvement is, but also like how much it would take to sate the population as a whole of like, do we need it to get to 2 hours before people are happy?
Oh, that's wild. 2 hours, man. I've seen some like, is it sub 3 or is it like 3.5 is kind of like the mega speedrunner average right now?
3.5. 3.5 for one to maps is like the top of the top of the top right now.
That's wild. Yeah, I won't hit that probably ever. Okay, one last overall 0-5 question for you, Crimson. If we were to launch tomorrow with what we've learned from the reveal and not knowing the patch notes, what would you want to start as?
Well, we don't have patch notes yet, so I
know we don't have patch notes. So what's your best top league starter guaranteed to get to map skill Arbiter Divinity? That's what we're going to brand this as.
I mean, so many skills. I don't want to say anything because what if GGG is watching and nerfs my build? No, the thing that I would probably be playing I would be leveling as a Witch Hunter because Sorcery Ward is extremely strong. It's probably either the best or second best defensive ascendancy investment in the game right now. So since I'm really interested in pushing to high tier content as fast as I can, because I'm going to be trying to ladder race this season, I'd probably be starting as a Witch Hunter, and then what like skill I transition to in maps after leveling with grenades, I don't know. Okay. If it happened today, it would probably be Galvanic Shards and Stormblast bolts.
Okay.
But I'm not 100. I mean, like, I just need patch notes. I'd probably level as Witch Hunter and then transition Witch Hunter with grenades, and then transition to some faster scaling, Herald chaining, run around, clear big things, get a bunch of XP super fast.
So you're looking to actually challenge the SSF ladder instead of trying shiny new toys?
Yeah, I don't know if I have like a specific rank in mind that I'm shooting for, but like I am going to be trying to get up there on the SSF ladder.
Okay.
Top 10, top 20, top 5, top 1, who knows? But like I am going to be pushing for ladder position. So
are you particularly excited for any of the new boss fights, or is that something that's kind of secondary to you? You more so enjoy the grind and the stacking of stats on your character power?
I'm fundamentally competitively motivated. So the thing that interests me is like trying to get places fast more than like what the place is, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like, don't get me wrong, I'm excited for new boss fights and it looks super cool, but like I'm mostly motivated by the competitive aspect of things in gaming in general. So
Okay, well, that rolls me perfectly into our next topic, Crimson. So,
Mhm.
obviously, 05 is coming up, and after that, we're going to see a pretty substantial break for a major content update for PoE2. It's probably going to be 1.0 in November or December, but between now and then, we have Exilecon on November 7th and 8th. And at Exilecon, is going to be essentially the culmination of all the race events that GGG has been hosting since 01. The most investment they've really done in races since the early days of Path of Exile 1. So as, you know, a speedrunner, a commentator, a racer who's competed in these events, we know nothing about the qualifiers for Exilecon. We don't know the format. You know, we don't know who will be the top competitors and everything. So I'd love if you could give us almost like a play-by-play story time of
Sure.
how you would like to see this all play out.
Sure.
Like in terms of what the race is going to be to qualify, what the Exilecon race should be, and maybe who you think is in competition for those 4 coveted spots.
Sure. So I'm a big fairness enjoyer, and I want the best players to qualify. So regardless of who those players are. So having a format that does a lot to actually be efficient at deciding who is the best without, oh, well, so and so got a really good weapon this particular run, and since it was a best of one, that's it. So I would like a couple of different things. One is run to run variance based on item RNG is really large right now. And so a format where we have multiple qualifier races and have an average of some of those races be your qualifying score would be really cool. The sort of dream for me would be what's called a removed mean of 5. We run 5 times, we delete your best time and your worst time, and we average the middle 3. So that way, if you get, you get a completely free headhunter in your first one, and you on the third one you get, no regal orbs for the entire run. We delete those and we average the middle 3.
Okay.
So I'd like some format like that. The other thing is that there's a significant but hard to measure difference in loading screen times between regions. I say hard to measure because we definitely know that people have better and worse loading screens than one another, but it's hard to decide how much of that is due to server latency versus people's individual computers. There's some possibility that GGG can measure loading screen times and subtract it from overall timing, which would be great. That's hard to do.
Yeah.
Other ARPGs, by the way, have gone through this. For example, Diablo 2, their leaderboards, they have a plugin that measures your loading screen frames and removes them from your speedrun.com submission time.
Oh,
so
wow.
load removed timing is already a standard in some other ARPGs, including Diablo 2 speedrunning. So it's possible in PoE2, but actually implementing it is a lot of developer effort, depending on what implementation you choose. So with that in mind, the more interesting thing to me would be a regional qualifier format. So that way you're only competing against people in your same region. So if all the Europeans go, oh, the North Americans have a loading screen advantage because the authority server is in Texas. Okay, then we have a European qualifier. We have an Asia-Oceania qualifier. We have a North American qualifier. And then we have a wild card to get a 4th person. And so that way, if you sort of divide the world into the Americas qualifier versus the Europe and Africa qualifier versus the Asia-Oceania qualifier, that would be a very interesting format for me.
Okay.
And the combination of those two things where there are, multiple races to average out RNG, and then there's a regional qualifier format to compensate for the loading screen stuff. I think that would do as good of a job as is reasonable to get the best people there. The other half of the format, though, is what are we actually racing to in the qualifiers, which we don't know. I don't know. Although I hosted one race, I have no inside knowledge because, I want to compete, right? So I don't want to be disqualified by having special insider knowledge.
Right.
So I've told people, don't tell me stuff. I want to be, I want to not know. Because of when it is in the schedule of Exilecon itself, the Exilecon finals race is probably at most going to be 3 to 4 hours in duration, which means it might be a full campaign race. It might be what we have now, which is a Tavakai race. It could be something slightly shorter, like a race to kill Doriani, but it probably won't be a full hardcore SSF level 1 to Uber Arbiter race.
No.
That would be great, but it's not going to happen. And so It depends on game balance, but I think either Doriani or Tavakai is the format that I'm interested in.
Okay.
So,
any percentage?
Yeah, and I mean, I always want, like, personally, I'm okay with racing being pretty dissimilar to league starting, and so like all
Right.
the weird, edge use case stuff that people come up with because it's any percent and you're trying to see what you can get away with. Do I ascend? Do I not ascend? Type
Yeah.
stuff. I like that. So
Yeah.
for me, it would be like Tavakai any percent or Duriani any percent would be pretty interesting. So
yeah, I think that would be pretty exciting. And the qualifier system, when you were laying it out, it sounded just reminiscent of Dota, just with the regional splits and everything, and having more than just, because I imagine what they're likely going to do is just the top four, right? That's just, they're going to do what, 4 races and the top finisher from each goes. I think that's what they did for Exilecon before.
yeah.
I'd reckon it's the same, but that your system that you outlined is way more
We have
fair.
better technology now.
Right, and there's a lot on the line. What's the prize? Like $10K, and the 4 participants get flown out?
They haven't announced prize pool format for this, and a lot of things are possible.
$1 million.
Again to borrow from Dota culture, in principle, they could sell a supporter pack where 50% of the proceeds goes to the Exilecon finals pool. They could. That's a thing that's possible. They could have a $500,000 Exilecon finals if they did that, right? Like, I don't know.
That would be so hype.
But if it's similar to previous,
they're not going to do that.
If it's similar to previous Exilecons, the total prize pool is going to be about 20,000 US, with 10,000 US for first place.
They can do more. They're so big now. Come on, GGG. I know you're making bank.
I want them to sell a supporter pack and do it, but again, I'm also one of the competitors, and so I have a vested interest in the prize pool.
I would buy a race supporter pack that they released 100%. $60, half goes to the race prize pool. Oh my goodness, dude, they should do that. All right, I'm gonna message GGG. I'm gonna be like, do it.
Imagine the Exilecon finals being like a $500,000 race. It'd be sick.
Be so sick. And this game, I mean, now that it can get intense. It can get so intense, man. Oh, yeah. That would be very interesting.
So long story short, my ideal format would be like a total of 15 races. I don't want them run all at the same time because I enjoy the narrative of, like, if we did regional qualifiers, I would compete in the North American qualifier, but I could either watch and be a fan of or potentially host the other qualifiers. Right. And so I would like, if it were a regional qualifier format, which I would really like, then I would like them to be run at different times. And so a best of 3 or a best of 5 for 3 different regionals is a lot of races, right?
Yeah, so. Matt, you're laying it out. If they really wanted to invest into the Path of Exile to esports scene, Exilecon and 1.0 would be an excellent launching off point. I mean, the excitement and the stakes would be off the charts if they did a bigger prize pool. I'd reckon it's going to be bigger than the prior Exilecons, but a funded prize pool, like going back to the days of Dota when they used to do that, because they don't do it anymore, right?
Not anymore, no.
Right, yeah, so sad. Me and my wife probably dropped, guys, don't get upset at us. This is before we had kids. A couple $1,000s on Dota 2 battle passes. I mean, my wife needed we haven't played Dota in 4 years. She needed the Windrunner Arcana. She needed the barefoot, thigh high Windrunner Arcana.
She needed the female anti-mage persona.
We had stopped playing at the female. That is right around when we stopped playing. She didn't get the female anti-mage, but we got like the Windrunner. I remember the Earthshaker Arcana, the Invoker persona, where he's Baby Invoker, right? But I mean, even back to TI3, TI4, TI5, we bought all that. I was hyper invested in that entire scene. And honestly, I mean, we're just segueing like we're pros, dude. This was right into my next question. I think I know how this happened, but I'd love for you to lay it out. How did you get into professionally casting and participating in games like this? Where did you begin, Crimson?
So, good segue. So before I was super invested in ARPGs, so this is, 5 to 8 years ago, I was spending a huge amount of time in the North American amateur Dota scene. There are a couple of different amateur Dota leagues. There's 82L, the Amateur Dota 2 League. There's RD2L, the Reddit Dota 2 League. There's MD2L, the Midwest Dota 2 League, and so on and so forth. And I'm not good at Dota, to be clear. I'm below average, but very passionate. And one of the things that you would do as a courtesy for your friends is if your team was in one of these amateur tournaments and you were on by that week, you would Twitch stream someone else's game as a watch along. And so I started doing that, and I'm a prodigious yapper. I just, lots of words per minute from me. And so my friends liked when I did it, and I received a lot of positive feedback. And eventually, the first thing that happened was one of the organizations that was involved in that amateur Dota league also had a professional team. So it was like a brand that, like, you could use the branding assets of the professional team for your amateur team if you like had a deal with them.
Yeah.
And they ended up reaching out to me because that professional team was going to host a fundraiser for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society.
Okay.
Where they were going to have shoutcasted Dota matches where people who donated could influence things that would happen in the game.
Oh.
And they had liked my amateur casting of my friends, and they offered to have me MC the event. And then eventually that became a regular thing where I was MCing small Dota tournament things by request for friends, mostly for free. And then eventually I realized I probably had enough of a casting highlight reel to like try to get some part-time money by like casting tier 2 and tier 3 Dota. And so I made like $50 a game to broadcast some very low tier, very high tier amateur, very low tier professional Dota.
Yeah.
And then that's sort of how the name CrimsonCasts comes from that, because I'm Crimson and these are my shoutcasts.
Nice.
And so that's what the Twitch channel name is.
Oh,
I'm not CrimsonCasts. I'm Crimson. These are my broadcasts.
Right, exactly. Okay, good. Wow, I didn't know that. So you were casting tier 2, tier 3 teams. Did you ever sub in or get to one of the big LAN events, or did you ever go just as a fan?
Close.
No,
nowhere close.
Oh, really? I've been to one Dota event, dude. It's very close to where I live. MLG Columbus. I was there in person, 14 years old. Man, such hype. Are you aware of the storyline of MLG Columbus?
Yeah, no, I've followed professional Dota for years.
Yeah. The Arteezy showcase, Eternal Envy taking down Burning and DK. Oh, dude. I lost my voice. Me 14-year-old.
Sure.
Oh,
see, I think that because of format, like ARPG racing is just very different to things like, Dota and League of Legends and even StarCraft and Counter-Strike. It's just a very different thing. And I don't ever think that like PoE2 racing is going to be as popular as those sorts of things, but I do think that there's an opportunity to do a lot more than what we have now. So I think that the more exposure the idea gets and the better we have in terms of production and in terms of casting and in terms of community buy-in, I think that the scene can grow from what it is right now. I don't think it's going to be like professional Counter-Strike selling out the American Airlines arena for the major, but like there's stuff that can happen. So
yeah, and they have proven to want to invest into it. They have the spectator mode that's obviously in there. They are doing these race events leading up to the Exilecon race. It wasn't that solely. Maybe after 1.0 they'll go a little bit deeper into the investment. Could be interesting because I have a newfound love of it. I casually watched them leading up to 0.4's races. Then I was pretty into watching those races. I had them up on the big screen TV and everything. And I'm now beyond excited now that I've participated just a little bit, dipped my toes in for 0.5 set of races and the Exilecon qualifiers. Those are going to be the stakes alone, just being able to be flown out to Exilecon and everything and participate. That's substantial. So I'm very excited for those. Well, Crimson. Oh, go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, you go for it. You go for it.
Okay. I was just going to ask on the PoE2 front again. Obviously, you've been, playing this whole time through. You never played PoE1, so I was curious. What's your top moment in Path of Exile 2's launch so far? We're like a year and a half in, pretty much. Do you have a favorite moment, a favorite patch, a favorite build? Just What's the best time that you've had
Oh,
playing this game?
I'm gonna engage and bait the hell out of the YouTube comments right here. I miss the Rake Stomping Ground racing meta and leveling meta in O.2 where you could strength stack and you could put Stomping Ground on that. It was so it I don't think it was good for the game. I think it was bad for the game. And I understand why it's patched, but I do wake up some mornings and just think, I miss it. I miss it.
No.
I miss it.
I couldn't.
And from a racing perspective, it also did so much to like even out RNG because like so little of your power came from gear and so much of it just came from your tree that like it was like the most skill expression stuff and like microing to get the correct disengage angles and the way that you would disengage into dodge roll into the next rake was like all this micro stuff. I remember at one point I was talking to another runner and I was like, dude, you need to turn down your DPI. And he was like, why? And I was like, because you're over flicking. And I was like, this is the first time that like Counter-Strike, like aim terminology had started to come into like the placement of PoE2 racing skills. It was peak. It was horrible for the game. It was horrible for the game.
Okay.
But I missed that. If you're asking me what my favorite patch was, I do wake up some mornings and go, oh, it would be nice. If only I could make a private league that had that setting back.
Dawn of the Hunt, Stomping Ground, Rake tech. That's what Crimson wants back for Path of Exile.
I don't know. No. I don't want it back for the game in general. I want to have like an isolated private league where like that exists, but it doesn't affect the regular game's economy or gameplay. Just let me play Stomping Ground over on my own.
Yeah, just a little adventure, just for old time's sake. It was good. Man, I remember. Yeah, I remember those races.
It was peak, man.
Yeah, I remember. It was so ridiculous watching everybody's screens. Everybody's just flipping around, just back and forth.
People were strength stacking on Sorceress. They were playing melee strength stackers on Sorceress. It was peak.
Busted.
It was phenomenal. I miss it.
Absolutely busted. And that's what you're doing right now. So you're currently a student while juggling the ARPG stuff. Then.
Yep.
Oh my goodness gracious. Wow, and that's why you're able to explain Alexander Sanikov's paper related to the rendering.
I don't know why that clip went viral.
In Path of Exile 2.
I woke up the morning that Exiled Again had clipped that like graphics paper thing. That was so funny. So to go back a little bit in the conversation, you asked like how you get into shoutcasting games. The way that I ended up in the position I am for PoE2 is literally just I'm friends with Angormus and was like, hey, you should submit to Games Done Quick and I'll commentate. Like that was it. There was no anything. And then it ended up being accepted, and so we went out. But in the prep for Exilecon, in the prep for Games Done Quick, I was really worried since I don't have that much of a background in PoE1 that like I wouldn't know the lore, or I would say something that, lets on that I don't know the whole history of the franchise, because I came in with PoE2. And so I did like dozens of hours of like, I watched every lore video. I would go look at like tier lists for league start builds for like patches that happened 5 years ago, because I really wanted to know like the history of the meta so I couldn't be called a tourist. And as part of that, I watched every single Exilecon talk from both Exilecons.
Right.
And when Alexander Sanikov gave a talk about the graphics engine in Path of Exile, he mentioned that he had in the talk, he mentioned that he had published a paper, a computer science paper about the implementation of Radiance Cascades for global illumination. And I was like, I'm a mathy guy. I'll go look that up and read it. And that way, haha, you think Crimson's not a real Path of Exile enjoyer. You've never even heard of this, and I'm reading papers about it. Like, I was so worried about being seen as an outsider.
Yeah.
And so I may have over-indexed a bit. And so as a consequence, I've read academic papers about the graphics engine. And so that bit always makes people it catches people off sides when they're like, why do you even know that? And it was because I was so worried about not being a member of the tribe,
Yeah, and I didn't even touch on that. How was that whole experience with Games Done Quick? I mean, that's how I first was exposed to you. That's the first thing that I saw. I watched the Angormus speedrun, you casting it. I thought it was freaking awesome. I think you just mentioned that's when I reached out to you. How was that whole experience at Games Done Quick? I know Angormus said it was
so weird.
Weird?
It was so weird. So I've watched Games Done Quick every year for a decade.
Yeah.
And okay, so the application process is really straightforward. You just submit a VOD and then you write a 100-word explanation of the run, and you submit that, and that's it. So Angormus and I recorded a run where Angormus is playing and I'm doing 90% of the talking. And then we submitted that, which was a conversation between me and Angormus where he was like, I actually think that it's easier for me to just lock in and you can just do all the talking and that'll be the split, which is not the GDQ convention that the runner says nothing. That's not normal at Games Done Quick.
Yeah.
But it's what we liked, and Angormus and I are close friends. And so the acceptance rate for Games Done Quick is ridiculously low. The time that we got in, the acceptance rate was 7.8%.
Wow.
So 1 out of every 12 or 13 runs got in.
Yeah.
So we weren't expecting to get in. I felt pretty confident, but it wasn't like a given at all. And then going there was just so weird because it's just in a hotel in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
So you go there and like the lobby was decorated with like video game plushies because the hotel was trying really hard to be a good host.
Yeah.
But it was like the weirdest assortment of like, here's a cardboard cutout of the Master Chief and next to him is a Pikachu. Like just like random whatever video game memorabilia they could get on short notice in the lobby.
Yeah, they couldn't
and
get
that,
this
which
guy.
was great because like it did have the effect of like clearly they're trying to be a good host, right?
Right.
But then there's a media training before you're on the main stream because there are brand obligations for GDQ. Like Red Bull is a sponsor and it's a 50,000 average viewer event. And so we need to be moderated in the way that we make jokes about political topics or adult topics or anything else. And so there's a media orientation. And when we went to the media orientation for our session, all the other runners and commentators are there and it's being hosted by a person who's staff for the event. And we're going around the room saying like, oh, what game are you here for? What game are you here for? What game are you here for? And then we say Path of Exile 2. And like half of the room turns to me and Angormus and is like, oh, I'm so excited about 0.3. I'm playing a Bear Slam Druid. I can't believe it. Bear of Katava, blah, blah, blah. And it turns out that like almost the entirety of like the old school Nintendo and PlayStation 1 gamers that were there to run like Jack and Dexter and Pokemon Red version are like secretly PoE1 Andes.
Yeah.
And so for the rest of the couple of days that we were there, Angormus and I would be like going to the practice room, which is just a hotel conference room with some laptops in it where you can rehearse. And Angormus would be playing and I would be narrating, and people would come from across the room and hear us talking about Path of Exile and interrupt us to be like, man, can you look at my POB for my Pathfinder? It was great. So we were like micro celebrities the entire time. It was hilarious. It was so funny because people loved Path of Exile there. And then the actual broadcast itself is just a weird, like I'm on an IKEA couch that's like half assembled. Like they clearly didn't screw in the legs on that IKEA couch correctly. And then we sound check, and you can go find this in the VOD if you want. While I'm narrating and while Angormus is playing, and to the extent that he and I are talking to each other, every now and then there's a producer in our headsets giving us some kind of a note. And I can see them. So they're like, Angormus and I are on a stage. Angormus has a monitor. To the left is a TV that I'm looking at to do the commentary. And then beyond that, there's a guy standing there with like an NFL coach's like hip side pack, pressing a mic button to talk to us. And the only time that it really slipped through into the broadcast, as far as I could tell, was there was someone in Twitch chat who was afraid of spiders. And repeatedly kept being very upset that we weren't giving arachnophobia warnings. And so throughout the run, the producer eventually comes over and says like into the mic pack, and this is while our host, who's a guy, he's reading like donations and stuff. So I have a minute to like sip my water and whatever. And the producer comes over and is like, can you give spider warnings for the rest of the run? And I was like, I'm not supposed to respond verbally, is what they've told me. I'm supposed to shake my head or nod my head. But I couldn't track what he was even asking. So you can hear me during the middle of a donation read. You could look at me and I will go like, spider warnings? Like under my breath. And then the producer ends up going like, I'll get some clarification, and walks off screen. And then I never got any clarification.
Oh my goodness.
So for the entire like second half of the run, I'm sitting there. That happened at some point in early Act 2 while Angormus was in like Mastodon Badlands. If you want to find the moment, you can go find it. And it was so funny to me after the fact, because it's like, streaming on Twitch, even if you have a couple hundred viewers or even a couple thousand, is you can see the chat, you recognize most of the names, the topic of conversation. You know that the average person who's watching you on Twitch or watching me on Twitch, I like know that they know something about Path of Exile and we have this shared interest. Whereas like the GDQ audience, first off, I can't see chat. Second, there's 65,000 people in chat. And third, none of them have ever played Path of Exile before and none of them know anything about me. And so it was more like being on a TV show set than it was on being in my house with my laptop or anything. And so it was bizarre.
Yeah,
it didn't feel like a big stream. It felt like something completely different to streaming, to regular Twitch streaming. It felt more like being on a TV show would feel.
Right. I mean, casting on a half-built jank IKEA couch sounds what a wild experience, dude. Like, shoot, it's gonna fall over on me or anything. Spider warning. There must have been, I mean, if there's 65K people in chat, there must have been like, there had to be spam of like, spider warning, please, spider what? Like, that's crazy.
No,
it was just like
that. Because I went and watched the VOD back with the chat and I couldn't.
That's hilarious.
I didn't see a single message like that. And to their credit, there were a bunch of like PoE1 OGs who were in the Twitch chat and were, adding on to what I was saying. So like Ziggy, for example.
So cool.
And Lolcohol and Guitaraholic, there were a bunch of PoE1 knowers who were there and like giving out advice. So I hope that whoever that was, sorry, there's a lot of creepy crawlies in our dark gothic fantasy game. So
you guys think you might try to do it again once Acts 5 and 6 are out? So a whole game's done quick run, or is there some sort of rule that you can't resubmit for the same game for a certain amount of time?
So you can submit as often as you want. So like, for example, every single Games Done Quick has multiple Super Mario 64 submissions of every different category of everything. What's more likely is that it'll probably be a post 1.0 type of thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we can submit anything. We could submit, a full campaign run. We could submit a more limited thing. We could submit a race between two top people. So there's a bunch that in principle could be done. The way that the people that decide who ends up on the roster for Games Done Quick are called the Games Committee, which is just a bunch of gamers. It's literally just a bunch of nerds in a Discord call picking and choosing who ends up in. And what we were told repeatedly by Games Committee members that we met was that the Games Committee really wants PoE1 to be submitted, and they're shocked that no one's ever submitted PoE1.
Gotta message message Ben. Message Jungrown. They probably do that. Yeah.
So when we got back from GDQ, I know Angormus reached out to both Exile and Tai and Havoc.
Okay, Havoc.
So like a bunch of the top PoE1 racers, like if you're a PoE1 person and you're watching this, like please submit something to Games Done Quick. Like they want to accept a PoE1 run.
That is shocking. It's been around for so long.
Now they can't guarantee acceptance of one thing versus the other thing, right? Because it's a committee-based decision. But we were told, like, we were given more than a wink and a nudge that if PoE1 were submitted, it would be considered pretty seriously. So
how exciting. Wow, man. I mean,
this is a whole thing that we could do of like what the actual commentary for GDQ was way more scripted than you think it is. No one ever realizes this. I had a notebook of 32 pages of notes with like what I was going to talk about, bullet points in every single zone in the entire game.
Really?
And I did not deviate a single word from that script.
Really?
So like, so like when it seems very off the cuff, but it's not. Like I've pre-planned every single tiny pun in the entire run was like on note cards before I got there.
Wow. No, I did not know that. So you
like,
did that, for example, too with ours last night. Does that help quite a bit with shoutcasting? Having all those planned stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, so like, for example, at GDQ, I know that most of the audience has never played Path of Exile, let alone anything else related to it, right?
Right.
I'm just going in assuming that none of them have played Diablo or Last Epoch or Grim Dawn or Titan Quest or PoE1 or anything. And so I decided very early on that like, okay, skill and support gem, you need to understand that. Randomized items, you need to understand that. And then we go through of like, and then item bases come in tiers. And so we step up from the wooden club to the smithing hammer to then the slim mace to then the studded club and so forth. And so like, where are these things going to happen? And then in the Grim Tangle, I'm going to explain like, why is Angormus taking his chest piece off and how does sprint work and all this movement stuff. And so my keyword for Grim Tangle, for example, was movement. And so if you go back and watch the VOD, you can see that there are times where things happen to Angormus, like he gets his first pair of movement speed boots, and I don't say anything about them at all. Like he picks them up, and instead of going, oh, he got 10% movement speed boots and blah, blah, blah. Nope, that's 2 zones from now. We're going to talk about movement speed boots 2 zones from now. And so it was all super duper scripted.
Yeah, no, that's smart though. That's good.
And so...
Okay.
And so, like, a lot of people in retrospect are like, man, I wish I could talk like you. I'm like, man, it took me 600 hours to write all those notes. Like, you don't, I guarantee you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're able to string the words together so well.
Thank you.
Like actually, like one after the other. I can't do that unless it's like, you know, literally just me. I'm not telling a story. You tell a story when you're casting, which is I listened to the whole cast this morning because yesterday we rewatched it, but I didn't listen to your casting until the Geonor fight. I listened to the casting. Dude, it was amazing. Oh my goodness. That was so entertaining. So I cannot wait for more
about
content creator cups and stuff. I hope those
That's one of the
out.
things about good casting that I feel that I'm pretty bad at compared to... Like, I feel like I do okay at presenting the analytical stuff.
Okay.
But the narrative stuff, I do my best, and I'm trying to work more on that.
I noticed it yesterday. I thought it was great. The whole brothers pitted against each other.
If you're a fan of other esports, there's a lot of adding narrative weight to moments that without the commentary would feel pretty bland. Like, I think about this in Counter-Strike a lot, where someone's sneaking around to get to flank the enemy team, and so the caster starts whispering to imply how sneaky we have to be.
Yeah.
And that adds this social aspect to it that creates more narrative tension. And so I feel that at the top end of words per minute, I do a pretty good job. But as far as like slowing down and adding more weight to things, I think that I could improve some.
Yeah, this will never be seen by any Dota casters, but you know, I used to watch every single Dota 2 tournament in existence religiously. I would wake up at 3 a.m. I would like not eat my food all day so I could cook like dinner at like a 10 p.m. start time my time for Chinese tournaments and Dota. Like I used to almost base before kids, I would base my entire schedule off these events because I love them so much.
Yep.
So like casters in that, the ones who really told a story and like knew the histories of each individual player and like their interact.
Yep.
Like that's and then players who also leaned into that too and gave casters a story to tell, because I think that's really important. Dude, like the one I always go back to is like Eternal Envy. Like that dude gave people the ammunition to tell a story about him, and I freaking loved it. And when he stepped away from the scene after Cloud9, it was such a sad day.
I think that we've got some social narratives coming up for the Exilecon qualifiers that'll be interesting.
Oh,
I think we're gonna have some stuff there. So
yeah, that'll be super good. I will be tuning in to all those. That's gonna be very exciting. Do you
it's just a question of if I'm not the commentary person.
True.
It's gonna be a judgment call that needs to be made by Ziggy and Rise or whoever it ends up being.
Yeah.
And I think it may not be the most liked thing by the runners itself for some of them who would prefer to keep a lower profile. But I do think that there's some, I think it would draw more intrigue to the sport.
Yeah.
If there was some more of that were
personality,
exposed.
Like personality in each of them, Yeah. So, I mean, you're obviously referring to Ang 11. Or why? Right, like that's going to be integral to the speed. Do you think the official Path of Exile channel will add that as a 7 TV emote? You think?
No,
just for the race.
No.
What? I mean, they're not sponsored by anybody. Come on, they got to add it.
I mean, channel. they did let me swear on their stream.
Oh, they swear in the interviews. Come on, do they care?
But did you watch the race that I hosted? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't remember. I did watch it. I don't remember.
So in the race that I'm hosting, season 4 race 2,
Yeah.
we're about halfway through act 2, and I'm
Okay.
I'm tabbing through all of the different weapons that different top players have.
Yep.
So I'm looking at Guy That Dies and Whole New Society and Luxian and Giluo and Angormus, and everybody has like a banger weapon. Everybody's having phenomenal item RNG. And then I tab to Luxian, who's this druid player,
Uh-huh.
and he's playing crossbows on druid, and I look at it, and it's the crossbow that I would put in my POB, like for number testing my leveling build. It's got like perfect flat lightning, perfect fire damage, perfect increased elemental damage with attacks, +2 all projectile levels, +9% attack speed, plus crit. It was like the craziest thing I've
Yeah.
ever seen. And so the production is just me and Rise in a Discord call, and then there are 2 other GGG employees who shall remain nameless in the call with us, not speaking on the stream, but typing to us in the Discord chat.
Yep.
And I'm like typing back and forth to them. Whenever I'm not talking, I'm typing furiously to the GGG employees asking like, hey, can you get me this person's username so I can look at their instance? Or like, it's important to the narrative of the race that I know how long can I get a comparison between player A and player B, how long it took them to clear Apex of Filth?
Right.
Right. So I'm asking like that. And then data person is typing back saying, Whole New Society took 1 minute and 41 seconds, and so took 2 minutes 12, and so took 2 minutes 28, and I'm able to compare.
Okay.
But at one point, this player gets an insane crossbow, and I type to the host. I go, "Am I allowed to swear on stream? This is the craziest crossbow I've ever seen." And he replies, "Sure, LOL." And Rise is in the middle of a segment as I'm typing this, and Rise looks over, because our cameras aren't on screen, but he's still sharing camera in the Discord call, so I can see Rise's facial expression, and we're communicating non-verbally that way, right? And I look over and I see Rise like get to the end of his sentence and take a pause, and then I see him like start to laugh at the idea of me asking permission to swear, and so I send it and I go, "Holy fucking shit! What a crossbow!" Like I sent it, and and both the GGG employees in the call type Lamau into the chat in all caps. and then Rise, and then I go through explaining why the crossbow is so good and how impactful these modifiers are, and his tooltip damage is so high, and it's normally this, but at this point in the run he has double that, and that's why he's doing so well, and blah blah blah. And then I get to the end of my thing, and Rise takes over, and Rise's next sentence was like, "GG never lets me swear." And as Rise says that on the broadcast, the GGG employee types back, "Rise, you've never asked."
It's true. It's true. You just gotta ask permission, dude. So good, man.
I felt bad in the moment, because I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't have sent it that hard, maybe I could have just said "God damn"
it
or
was
something.
hype,
But I,
dude. Like
but
the
I
ending
said
of
it,
that.
I said it so emphatically and whatever.
Yeah.
And I went back and watched the VOD after that, because I was trying to not keep track of chat, because it was too active for me to read everything and read production and do everything else. And I went back and watched the Twitch chat, and there was like an absolute wall of like LOLs and KEKWs and stuff.
Oh yeah, people love it.
When I did it, and I was like, hell yeah.
Especially if it's rare, dude. You drop it in those key moments, especially if it was like the first time, because I'm sure if Rise never asked permission, and I don't think Ziggy, drops anything. That was probably like, oh, whoa, sit up in their chair, start typing in Twitch.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. So good.
Which, like, again, like it's a mature game for mature audiences, and I think that people can handle it.
Oh yeah.
But it was still a moment of me like, it's my first time, getting paid by GGG to do this. I sent it, and I felt bad for a bit, and then afterwards I was like, nah, they could handle it. They're gamers.
Right. Okay, so now you need to qualify for the first Exilecon race so that you can help cast the subsequent 3. What you need to do.
I would love to, don't get me wrong, winning the very first one, I would love to do commentary, but also I would just love to watch as a fan.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a fan of the sport as much as I'm a competitor in it, if not more.
It's going to be good. What a story. Your life, game's done quick, all the races. Dude, this has been such a unique chat. I really appreciate you coming on. Was there anything else you wanted to yap about here in the days leading up to 0.5?
Please don't nerf Please, GGG, I know you're watching. Please don't nerf Sorcery Ward. I have a whole league start plan. Please don't nerf Sorcery Ward.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Crimson. This has been phenomenal. If anybody's watching in the bot and hasn't already subbed to Crimson's channel on YouTube, followed his Twitch, make sure you go and do it. And if you are watching the bot, I will leave it in the description below. You especially released an amazing league start tips video, right? I really, it popped off. Congratulations. I love to see it. It was really well done. And I swear I will learn how to use regex eventually. That was one of Dead Rabbit's critiques of me. It's like, do you not, is there a gentleman's agreement to not use regex? Like, what is going on here? You know? No. I'll learn.
You just neither one of you had one. So
exactly. That was the whole problem. So, all right, chat. Thank you so much for tuning in. This has been great, Crimson. I'll probably chat with you later. This has been a great time. Have a good one.
Yeah, good talking.